In Trump's post stating that the G2 will be convening shortly, is he signaling a shift in how the United States views its relationship with China, potentially treating China more as an equal partner rather than a junior or rival partner? And Shub says, is a bipolar world order inevitable with two poles, US and China? Will India and Russia become vassals of China, given that the level of technological advancements China are doing, which will make Chinese military extremely superior compared to India and Russia? Right. So Trump said the G2 will be convening shortly. The Chinese made no such statements. But there's been this talk in the West since the early 2000s that the US and China need to, since China is emerging as a major power, the US and China need to be the two poles in the emerging world order. China became very significant, you could say 2008, 2007, 2008 onwards, after the global financial crisis, in which China did a lot to actually stabilize the US dollar for their own reasons, obviously. And after 2012, once Mr. Xi Jinping came to power, the China, you could see a very different China going forward. And China obviously is a very major economy now, the second largest economy, and technologically very advanced, maybe in some areas potentially even a significant challenger rival, maybe even more advanced than the US in some specific areas. So the G2, so the US wants a bipolar world order, and China will also be very happy with a bipolar world order in which it controls half of the world, right? Neither the US nor China wants a multipolar world order, which is messy. They don't want a third pole of India, Russia, and the global south, or maybe four poles, like Russia as a pole of its own with its own set of nations, which cooperates with China as well as India and the global south. No one wants that sort of mess. So the US and China both seek a G2 situation, a Cold War situation, where the rivalry can be managed. See, in the 20th century, the US and the USSR were major adversaries with massive amounts of nuclear weapons pointed at each other, but they also cooperated in a variety of ways to manage the relationship and keep the tensions from spilling over beyond what anyone wanted, right? So that's what the US and China wants. And now the US seems to have resigned itself to the fact that China is now, well, almost a peer equal to the US. China doesn't have any of the advantages in the power projection domain that the US has. Very similar to the situation of the USSR, right? So China faces all those problems, all those issues, all those drawbacks. But China is bound, it's hamstrung by these issues, by the island chains and so much more. But China has some advantages that the USSR did not have: technological advancement and a far better system of governance than the USSR. And so it's a different situation, but a similar situation. So the US, it seems to have now decided that it's going to withdraw into the Western Hemisphere, and it's going to defend the Western Hemisphere from Chinese encroachments. And it kind of is giving away the Eastern Hemisphere to some extent to China. It still wants to have as much, it's not giving up its power projection capabilities in the Eastern Hemisphere. It's not giving up its occupation of Japan or South Korea. It's not giving up its possession, you could say, of Australia, of all the assets it has cultivated and created in Southeast Asia. It is not giving up East or West Pakistan. It also seeks to expand its footprint through Bagram Air Base. It seeks that. It seeks to pressurize and contain India, maybe even turn India into vassal. So it's not giving up any of that. But it's the US is now clear that China is the dominant power in the Eastern Hemisphere, despite all of this. So it's going to contain China. It's going to contain India. It's going to try and pressurize India into becoming a vassal. If India refuses, it will try and do a regime change in India. All of that is going on. And if India somehow refuses and succeeds in not becoming a vassal of the US, does it mean that India will have to become a Chinese vassal? That also, well, if Mr. Modi stays in power, and if whenever he steps down, at whatever point in time, maybe 5-10 years, whatever it is, and if there is continuity in the political and geopolitical policy of the US, of India, then India will find itself in a strange situation with China also. China will want India to be a vassal. And just like we are saying no to the US, we'll say no to China also. So we could face a lot of pressure from multiple fronts. We could face instability, we could face wars, we could face proxy wars, resumption of proxy wars, east, west, whatever, all of that. So, like I said, we are entering a period of significant geopolitical instability. As the world order rearranges itself, there's going to be a lot of instability. It's like an earthquake happening. Global tectonic plates are changing and shifting, and that causes earthquakes. It's like that. So India has the choice of either becoming a US vassal or going into RIC as a junior partner of China, or staying completely sovereign, which is the ideal situation. But it is a course of action that will be difficult. Next 20 years will be difficult. Ideally, that's what happens. And we then emerge as a major economy into 15, 20 years, and then it will be very hard for others to bully us. But that's going to take a lot of fortitude and a lot of hard choices and a lot of and significant amounts of various kinds of pain. That's where we are.